Hello everybody. In this video, I will be painting my mom's kitchen cabinets. The first thing I will do is remove the door cabinets, and I will make sure to label each door so that I do not mix them up and I will know where each one came from. The first thing I will paint will be the base cabinets. From far away, they look ready to be painted. But as you draw in close, you see areas that need attention. I'm going to remove anything that stands out, like this dried up paint. You will get a better finish by sanding and removing all blemishes than to paint over them. The base cabinets were also sanded down lightly, as this will help the paint adhere to the surface much better. Outside of the house, I have set up an area where I can wash and scrub down the cabinet doors. These cabinet doors have years of grease and oil buildup on them, and I'm using soapy water to remove as much of it as I can. This was easily the hardest part of this project, as the more I cleaned them, the more and more grease I had to wipe away. I let them dry for a day and came back to check up on them. Most of the grease had been washed away, but you can still see the shiny spots where the oils were still deeply rooted into the wood, and I gave these doors another scrubbing. Back inside the house, the base cabinets are ready to get primed. I will be using this primer that has worked well for me in the past. The base cabinet has been wiped down of dust and debris from the sanding. The roller I'm using does not have an edge guard on it, meaning the corners also get painted as I roll over them. Some rollers do have an edge guard or protector, and they will leave you with a big gap between the corner. My strategy is to get as much paint into every corner as possible that the roller will allow me to, and then come back with a brush to cover the areas left unpainted. This is the easiest part of the project, as you really cannot mess this up. Paint as much as you can and try to cover as much as you can. If you get paint drips, the primer is easy to sand down and you can easily fix this. I make sure to keep the roller consistently wet. You want this primer to cover as much as possible. Avoid painting with a dry roller, as this won't give a good finish. If you have unfinished cabinets like these ones, you will notice that they will quickly absorb the primer. If that happens, just keep painting them until you have a nice and even coverage. You can see how much I was able to cover with just a roller, and I can now start painting with a brush. I'm going to use a small, high-quality brush to start cutting into these corners, but I will not use primer, as cutting with a brush is extremely time-consuming, so I'm going straight in with the paint. This is the paint I will be using. It's a heavy-wearing paint that can be washed and cleaned up many times over, as well as drying hard and smooth to the touch. Cutting in with a brush is the opposite of painting with the roller. This time, I will be applying only a small amount of paint to the corners, making sure not to leave excess material, as this can cause drips, and I will make sure to flatten out the first coat of paint to avoid making lines on the finished result. After I was done cutting in with the brush, I noticed these very large openings between the wood panels of the base cabinet. I'm going to fill these in with latex caulking to have a seamless finish. Back outside, I'm preparing the doors with a pair of hooks and a hanger that will help me to spray them and to hang them up to dry while the paint cures. These hooks will go underneath or on top of the cabinet door, where the small holes won't be seen after I remove them. I will be using this airless paint sprayer to paint the cabinet doors. This is a Graco X5 that I purchased from Home Depot many years ago. It cost me at the time $350, but it has paid for itself many times over with all the different projects and jobs I have been able to do with it. What you are seeing me do right now is the startup process to get the machine primed and running. I always prime with the water first, as this will help me easily see when the piston is actually pumping the water and ready to be used. Once that is done, I will insert the suction tube into the gallon of primer that has already been filtered with the strainer. You can see the rim around the container where I have already opened this and made sure to strain the primer to avoid clogging the machine. And finally, I will start priming the hose to get rid of all the water that is inside of it. Once I see the primer begin to flow, I will spray a test piece to see if the machine is ready to go. My method for spraying these doors is to begin with the edges. As the doors have a small rabbet cut, this allows me to get the primer into those corners, making sure I don't skip over them. Once that is done, I give it a nice coat of primer over the entire surface. And since the primer gets absorbed very quickly into the wood, I give it a few passes. But I'm also being careful not to overdo it. Now this is where those hooks and the hanger come into play. By allowing me to hang the door freely on the pole, I can then focus on spraying the other side of the door. I then take the door away from the spraying area and into a place where they will all stay until the primer dries. With the doors now drying, I can shift my attention to the cabinet drawers. I sanded down any rough corners and edges, and I have also filled in the holes of the old drawer pulls. I put my respirator back on and started priming the drawers. I started spraying them from the outside first, making my way around them. Then, I began to spray the inside corners, making sure I got them all painted. And finally, I gave the whole drawer a coat of primer, as well as another coat on that front face where it will see much use. Once the primer on the drawers dried up, I came back to slightly sand down any rust spots on them, and to give them one final check before spraying the top coat of paint. I will be using the same paint I used for the base cabinet on the drawers and the doors. I decided to paint the drawers first instead of the doors, as the drawers can slide back into the base cabinet once they are dry to the touch, where they will finish curing, and this will leave me with more room to hang doors to dry. I have the drawers drying here all together. I'm waiting for them to dry enough to handle, so that I can make room here for the doors. We don't have much room in our back patio, so once they go back on the cabinet, I can start to paint the doors and dry them here as well. I've had some setbacks with these hangers as they cannot handle the weight of the larger doors, so I have reinforced them with metal wire to keep them from breaking. Once again, this is the paint I'm using, highly durable and easy to wash. I'm spraying the doors now with the paint, using the same method I used to apply the primer, by working on the edges first and then applying an even coat over the entire surface. I then carefully lift the door and hang it on the pole, so that I can continue to spray the other side. Once the first coat of paint began to dry, I noticed a few problem areas on the door. You can see here I did a bad job at filling the holes. If this was for me, I'd leave it, but since it was for my mom, I sanded it down and it went out for a second coat. Every single door received 2 coats of paint. 1 or 2 of them even got a third coat after I sanded down more imperfections that I found. You're going to spend the next 5 to 10 years looking at these doors, so while it may be hard work, it's definitely worth the time to make them look perfect. Back inside the house, the base cabinets have also received 2 coats of paint, and after a few days of drying, the doors are ready to be hung back up. To hang the doors, I'm using a very simple method, which is basically clamping down a piece of wood on the bottom of the cabinet to help me keep the door in place while I center and level it, and then mark the holes of the hinges with a marker. Here's what the doors look like once they have been installed back on the cabinet. And now finally, I'm going to install the new door and drawer pulls. The first door pull will need to be measured out manually. Once the first set of holes are made, I can then take this template I made and transfer those holes. This will now become the template that I use to make the holes on the rest of the cabinet doors. I made 2 of these templates, one for right-hand doors and the other one for the left-hand doors. Here is the end result of all the work that has been done. I hope this video was helpful, and if you enjoyed it, I kindly ask that you please like the video and subscribe to my channel. I will answer any questions you have in the comments. Thank you for watching.